Barely escaped, millionaire dad returns just in time as little girl begs for mercy. Samantha's breath came in quick, shallow gasps as she stared wide-eyed at the shadows closing in around her. The very walls of her mansion seemed to be catching a dark, ethereal pulse that echoed the dread in her heart. Alone in the dimly lit parlor, she knew something was horribly wrong. The telltale creak of an unseen footstep echoed through the silence, making her mix with fear and rage. She could feel the cold sweat pooling at the base of her spine, tingling with the senseless urge to flee. A broken doll lay at her feet, its empty gaze seemingly pleading for salvation as much as she was. Suddenly, a low rumble resonated outside, rattling the windows, and another clash of thunder sent her heart racing. It wasn't just a storm, there was a wicked intent in the storm's howling winds. Samantha's mind raced back to her father, the millionaire businessman who had left her alone this very morning with just a whisper of reassurance. Yet, her young mind couldn't shake the fearful notion that he might not return in time. 2 hours ago, two mysterious figures had knocked on their door, faces obscured by the shadowy gloom of the night. One, tall and imposing, had a laugh that sounded hollow as if the very essence of joy had been drained from it. They promised things, temptations that made her skin crawl. Samantha was torn between pleading for their mercy and the instinctual instinct for survival that simmered at her core. She tried to scream, but her own voice felt stolen, swallowed by the creeping shadows. Time felt warped. Seconds stretched into lifetimes. She could almost hear her dad's comforting footsteps, the way they used to echo through their lavish home. He always came home just when the world felt darkest. But when dread gripped her heart tighter, he wasn't just late. He was in danger, too, chasing the thrill of his latest venture, unaware that real peril was waiting for him at home. When the doors slammed open, a gust of wind swept through the parlor, chilling her skin. Samantha turned, adrenaline surging through her veins. Her father stood framed in the doorway, panting, eyes wide with concern, catching his breath as he called her name. Sammy. The sound tore her heart. But was it really him? Was he here to rescue her in time? As their eyes locked, a shiver ran down her spine. What if it was too late? The shadows were still lurking. She wanted to run to him, but hesitation clawed at her gut. It felt like the shadows had teeth, watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Samantha's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing. Just as she was about to rush to her father, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, a dizzying sound that made her blood run cold. Her father's expression twisted into one of dread, and in that frozen moment, true fear flooded their space like an incoming tide. They both knew something dark was lurking just beyond the threshold of safety. What awaited them in the shadows? Could her father save them in time? As Samantha gripped her heart, the uncertainty was almost suffocating. Fear washed over Samantha like a creeping fog, and her father's frantic gaze mirrored hers. He moved into the room, each step deliberate, like he was afraid the very floor might betray him to the shadows lurking just beyond their sanctuary. Stay close, Sammy. He urged, his voice strained. Thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the frames on the wall. The wind howled through the cracks of the old mansion, a haunting wail filled with more than just nature's fury. It was a warning, a deep echo of something ominous gathering strength outside. Dad, what she started, but before she could finish, the lights flickered violently before plunging them into darkness. Fear spiraled in her chest as she clutched the edges of the parlor table, desperately seeking something solid to anchor herself to. Here, he said, his hands searching the darkness until he found hers, gripping it tightly. In that moment, warmth flooded back into her, a beacon amid the storm. We need to leave this room. Now. But then came the sound, an unmistakable chuckle embedded in the wind, low and sinister, escalating from the shadows. Her father stiffened, every muscle in his body tensing as he instinctively turned towards the hallway whence the crash had come. "Stay," he commanded. "Don't move until I say so." Samantha nodded, though her heart screamed for her to go with him. The instinct to protect each other surged as their eyes locked one last time, his fierce determination trying to shield her from the truth of the danger they were in. With the darkness swallowing him whole, he took a deep breath, stepping into the abyss of the hallway. The minute he disappeared from view, panic clawed at Samantha. She wanted to scream for him to wait, but no sound escaped her lips, as if the shadows had swallowed her voice, too. The laughter grew louder, maddeningly inviting, echoing off the walls in the darkness. Samantha's heart raced as she strained to listen, straining for any sign, any sound that would tell her her father was still safe. Suddenly, a loud crash ruptured the silence again, and this time, it was closer. An object tumbled against the parlor door with a heavy thud, shaking the frame, jolting her nerve endings on high alert. "Dad!" she finally called, her voice shaking. "Please come back. No matter what, Sammy, don't open the door." She heard him shout from somewhere beyond the darkness. His voice was tinged with an urgency that sliced through her fear, but it only deepened the tension coiling in her belly. Time felt like it was spiraling out of control. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, and she pressed her back against the cold, unyielding wall, yearning for the warmth of her father's presence. Then, just outside the door, the shadows began to shift. A figure emerged, elongated and bizarre, as if it were molded by the very darkness itself. The shape seemed to breathe, a chilling rhythm of anticipation that sent tremors through her body. "Let us play," it crooned, its voice dripping with malice, chilling her to the bone. "Run, Sammy!" Her father shouted, the desperation in his tone igniting her instincts, but she was frozen, every ounce of fight spilling from her body. As the figure moved closer, bringing an unbearable weight of dread, something inside her snapped. Instinctively, she lunged for the door, her heart pounding as she grasped the handle. What if it was too late? What if she opened the door to her salvation or to her doom? The air burned with anticipation as the choice hung heavy. And then she heard it, a distant roar, one she recognized, the unmistakable sound of her father's struggle. Would she be brave enough to face the unknown, or would the shadows claim her father and her very soul? The answer was a heartbeat away. With trembling fingers, Samantha gripped the doorknob, her pulse racing like a sprinting heartbeat. The darkness pressed in around her, oppressive and thick, its cold tendrils wrapping around her like chains. The laughter of the shadowy figure was like fingernails on a chalkboard, scrapping at her sanity, inviting her to step into the nightmare. Just as she wrestled with the handle, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, followed by a hoarse grunt, a sound that tore through her hesitation like a knife. It was her father. "Dad!" she shouted, her voice cracking with panic. The urgency in her heart surged. The choice had become clear, igniting a fire in her belly. She flung open the door, breath catching as the shadows swallowed her whole. The hall beyond was a churning vortex of black with flickers of lightning illuminating the way momentarily, revealing twisted portraits and eerie tapestries. Her father's strained voice echoed from deeper within, muffled yet desperate. "Samantha, stay back. Run, get out." She stepped forward, driven by an instinctive need to find him, to save him. The grip of terror wove into her actions, but so did a flicker of hope. His proximity pulsed like a beacon through the dread. Each step she took sent knives of fear ricocheting through her, but the brutal reality of the situation urged her on. "Dad!" she called again, her voice barely above a whisper, raw with emotion. The laughter morphed into something different, a sinister melody dancing in the dark, mocking her fears. The air grew thicker, suffocating, as she attempted to navigate through the shadows. From around the corner, flashes of movement caught her eye. The figure was there, looming, shifting like smoke. "Come here, little one," it taunted, its voice sweet but dripping with venom. She stumbled back, heart racing as the air crackled with energy. This time, she wouldn't be frozen. She wouldn't let darkness ensnare her. "Sammy, I'm right here." Her father's voice called again, now close enough for her to sense movement in the darkness. Relief was nearly tangible, filling the cracks formed by her anxiety. "I'm coming," she cried, her voice steadier now. Her fear morphed into determination. With narrow focus, she edged toward the sound, her senses heightened. But the figure lunged, a blur of shadows that sent chills rippling down her spine. "Play with me," it hissed, tendrils reaching for her, suffocating all light. Samantha spun on her heel, desperation propelling her forward, but the air was thick and hard to breathe. "Dad!" she screamed, the echo jumping off the walls, begging the world to respond. Then, a bright flash illuminated the hall. Her father, fists clenched tight, his eyes fierce and aflame with unyielding resolve. "Get back! Now!" And just like that, the shadows recoiled, involuntarily backing away from his fierce presence. "Sammy, come to me." He motioned wildly, both encouragement and fear flooding his voice. It was a lifeline, pulling her toward safety, but then, that laughter returned low and cruel, rumbling like a distant thunderstorm. It seemed to envelop them, slithering into her mind, beckoning her to turn back. Samantha felt the tug, a magnetism that drew her toward the figure, almost against her will. "Don't fight it!" her father shouted, his voice a lifeline that broke through the chaos. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the weight of the shadows threatening to pull her under. With every ounce of will, she sprinted toward her father, the darkness clawing at her heels like a pack of ravenous wolves. "Hold on, Samantha!" he yelled as she neared him. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the figure behind her, its form twisting and contorting in fury. Just within reach, she pounded into her father's side, breaking free from the grasp of the shadows. But fate had another cruel twist in store, as the mansion shuddered violently beneath their feet. "Run!" he yelled, eyes wide as the walls themselves echoed the threat. Samantha took a deep breath, clinging to the warmth of her father's presence as they bolted back the way she had come. Yet as they reached the doorway, the laughter surged louder, angrier, as if the very house was alive and fighting back. Would they escape, or would the shadows permanently claim them, forever trapped in the mansion's sinister embrace? In that moment, Samantha felt the floor beneath them tremor, and she knew the hunt was far from over. The mansion groaned as if it were alive, each footfall echoing their panic. Samantha's heart pounded harder, the adrenaline surging, her eyes darting everywhere for a pathway, a shred of hope. She could feel her father's grip tightening around her wrist, a protective anchor amid the swirling chaos. "Keep moving. Don't look back," he urged, voice hoarse and commanding, dragging her through the doorway and into the swirling shadows. The corridor ahead twisted unnaturally, stretching like a living entity. Glimpses of the hall furniture, draped in shadow, became monstrous shapes in the flickering light. Lightning continued to split the darkness, but each flash brought only brief respite from the haunting figure that lingered just out of sight. "Dad, what is that thing?" Samantha panted, breathless with fear. "I don't know," he muttered, eyes scanning for an exit. "But it won't stop until it has what it wants." She felt a chill race down her spine. What could it want from them? All they had done was enter a home, seeking refuge. Then, the walls began to tremble, and a deep rumble emanated from the very ground beneath them. "It's angry!" she shrieked, her voice cracking as the looming figure danced just beyond her peripheral vision, whispering sweet nothings that chilled her to the bone. "Just keep running." He tugged her hard around a corner, sprinting toward the kitchen where they could hear a brief crackle of static from an old radio, as if offering a fleeting connection to the outside world. Samantha pushed herself, each step feeling heavier as darkness clawed at her heels. "Is anyone out there?" she cried, her voice barely above a whisper, a futile question in the void. "Sammy!" Her father stopped abruptly as a door swung open before them, revealing a narrow hallway, dimly lit and filled with an oppressive weight. It led down into the depths of the mansion's heart. "Should we go this way?" she gasped, the shadows flickering ominously to life around them. "It's the only choice we have," he gritted, latching onto her shoulder, his grip reassuring even as they stepped into the inescapable unknown. With each agonizing breath, fear threatened to choke her resolve. The shadows had quieted, and in that eerie silence, the laughter began again, soft, sinister, a warning that sent tremors through her legs. They stumbled into the hallway, and it closed in on them. The walls pulsed with a suffocating rhythm, like the heartbeat of a monstrous predator. Just then, Samantha noticed something glimmering on the floor, a small silver key. Her heart raced as she picked it up, its chill biting into her palm. "Dad, look!" she shouted, drawing his attention. "What if it opens a door?" Her father glanced at it, then back toward the twisting hallway. "We need to find where it fits," he said, urgency lacing his tone. As they pressed deeper into the shadows, the laughter crescendoed, wrapping around them like a vice. The oppressive darkness seemed to thrum with anticipation, ready to snatch them away at the next moment's notice. "Where are you?" the voice echoed as they reached a fork in the path. It was unbearable, so close and yet distant, a malevolent whisper that clawed at the edges of her sanity. "Stay close, Sammy." Her father stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied both paths. There was no time, and yet they couldn't afford to make a reckless choice. Without warning, the air shifted. A cold breeze swept through, brushing against their faces like icy fingers, making Samantha shiver. The laughter became wild, echoing down both corridors. "Pick one. We have to go," he barked, the weight of desperation staining his voice. Samantha looked between them, uncertainty gnawing at her gut, while she desperately stared down the paths. Something flickered behind her, a glimpse of movement. The figure, a gleaming silhouette steeped in darkness, shapes of eyes glowing with anticipation. "Choose." It hissed, the very air warping with its promise. Samantha's decision hung in the balance, her instinct screaming at her from the marrow of her bones. What would happen if they chose the wrong path? What if this was merely an elaborate trap? In that moment of uncertainty, she felt her heart constrict as the shadows dove forward again. "Dad! What do we do?" There was a heartbeat of silence before he took a breath, determination masking his fear. "We fight. We survive." And in that resolve, she knew her choice had to be made. Would she risk everything on instinct, or would the shadows claim them both before she could act? As the laughter crescendoed and the figure lunged again, she took a deep breath, her hand clutching the key tightly. The decision loomed like a gargantuan wave crashing toward them. Would they uncover the escape, or fall prey to the darkness waiting to swallow them whole? Samantha's breath came in frantic bursts, each one feeling more shallow than the last. A thick fog of fear enveloped her mind, clouding every decision. The choice loomed ahead like a fork in the road, one path bathed in darkness and the other whispering promises of salvation. The figure shifted closer, a silhouette that dripped with malevolence. Its eyes glinted, twin stars in a night sky devoid of light. "Choose," it hissed again, the word resonating in her bones, adding to the dread that threatened to strangle her. "We can't stay here," her father shouted, panic coloring his voice. Any second now the shadows seemed to pulse around them, squeezed tight by the figure's presence. Its laughter echoed like a twisted symphony, reminding her of cruel times long forgotten, a time before the terror of the mansion had stolen her innocence. "Left," she blurted, the instinct clawing its way out amid the chaos. It felt reckless, but she could sense the rightness in it, like jumping into cold water without hesitation. "Okay." Her dad didn't hesitate either, veering to left, propelling them forward. As they sprinted down the corridor, the key digging into her palm grounded her, reminding her they had something tangible amid the intangible terror lurking behind them. The air grew denser, shadows clung to the walls like cobwebs, reaching out with ghostly fingers. Turning another corner, they stumbled into a wide room, the decaying remnants of what once might have been a grand parlor. Old furniture lay thrown about like forgotten memories. A chandelier teetered, its glass crystals shimmering in an erratic dance above them, making it seem alive. "Look! Over there!" Samantha pointed to a door at the far end, its edges warped and weathered like the mansion itself. The key felt heavier in her palm, pulsing with urgency, as if it recognized its destiny, but before they could dash across the room, the figure slithered in, blocking their way. Darkness pooled around it, distorting its form, whispering secrets only the damned could understand. "You think you can escape?" it taunted, the voice gritty and mocking, like gravel scraping on glass. "Keep moving." Her father growled, pulling on her arm. They veered toward another doorway that led to what appeared to be a narrow staircase spiraling down into the darkness. "This way," Samantha urged, bolting ahead, the wooden steps creaking ominously underfoot. She risked a glance back as they descended, and for an instant, she swore she could see the figure gliding swiftly, the golden spark of its eyes fixed on them. "Faster!" her father urged, panic sharpening his words. Down, deeper into the mansion they went, spiraling into a pit where no light seemed to reach. Samantha's legs felt like they were made of lead, but she pushed through, spurred on by her father's presence at her side and the flickering ghost of hope that refused to die. Finally, they reached the bottom where a small door stood ajar, light spilling through like a beacon. Her heart raced as she rushed forward. "The key, Dad. We have to use the key." He reached into his pocket but froze, searching through the clutter of time. But before he could finish, a shattering crash echoed, the figure sweeping through the stairs, pouncing after them with insatiable hunger. "No!" Samantha screamed, fear igniting her to act. She seized the key, jamming it into the lock with shaking hands. Would it fit? Would it save them? Time paused, every heartbeat a drum of desperation. With a sharp twist, the latch clicked open. The door swung wide, bathing them both in a blinding light that rolled over them as if inviting them to step into another world. They didn't hesitate, rushing through the threshold but not once looking back to see if the darkness would follow. As they crossed over, Samantha felt a sudden jolt. The air thickened, and a cold hand gripped her ankle. Panic surged through her. She kicked free, the figure's roar echoing in her ears, and for a split second, she thought it would drag them back into the abyss, but they were through now. As the door slammed shut behind them, the world fell silent, broken only by the raspy breaths escaping her father's lips. What just happened?" he gasped, looking around in disbelief as the room began to vibrate subtly around them. "Did we make it?" Samantha's voice trembled, uncertainty creeping back, racing through her spine. But as she tried to comprehend their surroundings, an uneasy sensation twisted in her gut. The room was bright, nearly blinding, filled with an overwhelming warmth. It seemed almost welcoming, yet shadows still loomed in the corners, whispers curling into her ears once more. "Where are we?" her father's voice cracked, fear threading through the safety. And before they could gather their wits, familiar laughter echoed again, horribly close. And she realized they weren't free yet, not from the mansion, nor from the being that had stalked them. It had merely bided time, waiting for the right moment to strike again. "What do we do now?" Samantha whispered, dread pooling in her chest. That a faint start echoed from the door they had just escaped, sending a chill through her. They had to figure out how to defeat it, or risk being consumed by the very shadows that had chased them. As uncertainty thickened in the air, a chilling question lingered: what would it take to silence the darkness for good? The air hummed around them, thick with an intangible tension that pressed down like a weight. Samantha's heart hammered against her ribcage, a frantic drumbeat synchronized with the distant echo of laughter that twisted her stomach into knots. "Stay close," her father warned, his voice strained but firm as he scanned the room, searching for an escape. A series of ornate mirrors lined the walls, each reflecting fragments of light and dark, warping their features and twisting their fears into grotesque shapes. The shadows deepened, twisting at the edges of the mirrors as if they were alive. "What did we step into?" Samantha whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "This isn't over," her father replied, eyes darting. "I don't know how, but that thing is still after us." The laughter crescendoed, bouncing from the walls, a mocking reminder that they had not yet found sanctuary. Samantha felt the heat of her father's worry radiate through the air. She looked quickly to the door they had just emerged from, bracing herself for the figure's return, the rancid scent of old wood and dust filling her lungs, and then she saw it flitting in and out of the reflections on the mirrors. The figure, no longer just a silhouette, but a grotesque parody of human form, now fully manifested in the glass. Its smile unnaturally wide, filled with jagged teeth that seemed to drip darkness. "Dad!" she yelled, terror spilling from her lips as he lunged forward, forcing her back as the mirrors began to ripple, distorting their environment, the boundaries of safety crumbling. "We need to find a way out," he spat, desperation clawing at the edges of his bravado. But the inescapable truth loomed larger than the flickering light, the space was shrinking, the laughter growing louder, reverberating through their bones. The room felt like it was breathing, pulsing with malevolence as the figure vanished into thin air, leaving only its echoes behind. "Look!" she shouted, pointing to a large, cracked mirror at the far end that had begun to glow softly, a muted golden light spilling from its edges. It seemed almost inviting, but that instinctive warning in her gut screamed for her to stay away. "Don't!" her father pleaded, gripping her arm. It could be a trap. But Samantha edged closer, inexplicably drawn to the light, the key in her pocket throbbing with an urgency that matched her pulsing heart. "It might be our only chance." "Wait!" he barked, but she wasn't listening. Not anymore. As she reached the shimmering glass, her fingers grazed its surface, and a jolt of energy coursed through her, images flashing before her eyes. A whirlwind of memories engulfed her, the mansion's dark history, faces frozen in horror, desperate cries for help echoing in a void. She gasped, feeling a connection to every soul that had been trapped, just like them. "Samantha! Get away!" her father cried, attempting to pull her back, but she was rooted to the spot, as if the mirror had become an extension of herself. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the room, and she felt the presence of the figure re-emerging, seeping from the darkness. Panic surged within her. "We have to face it, Dad. We can't run anymore." Her father hesitated, fear clouding his face, but he saw the determination in her eyes. "Okay. But we need to stick together." The flickering laughter crescendoed again as the figure emerged fully, its form shifting between shadow and substance, eyes gleaming with malicious delight. "Foolish children," it mocked, its voice like nails on a chalkboard, reverberating through the very essence of their being. "You think this is a game?" Samantha steadied her breath, adrenaline surging. "No more games. You can't keep us here." A smirk split the figure's face, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. "But I have an invitation to play forever." Time blurred as Samantha took a brave step forward, the light from the mirror shining brightly now, illuminating the darkness pooling around them. "We'll break your hold." With those words lingering in the air, her father stepped beside her, their resolve merging into a shield against the looming dread. They would confront the shadows together. But as they stood firm, ready to challenge the darkness, a sudden crash echoed, the cracks in the mirror spreading like webs through glass, threatening to shatter their thoughts and their spirits. In an instant, vibrant bursts of color exploded, swirling like a maelstrom around them. And in that chaos, they caught whispers of vulnerability, fleeting offers of freedom layered with ominous threats. "Can you escape your fates?" the figure questioned, its laughter melding with the chaotic flares of light. "Or will you succumb?" Samantha's breath caught as the mirror displayed a fading vision of sunny skies, childhood laughter, and familiarity, contrasted sharply against her present reality. As pieces began to splinter, doubt crept in. Would they be able to break free? Or were they walking willingly into a trap? In that precarious moment, the shadows shifted, and a decision loomed, one that could determine their fate. What path would they choose, and could they even grasp the true meaning of escape? Samantha felt the tremor of fear take root in her chest as the world around them shattered into chaos. Fractured pieces of the mirror fell away, revealing glimpses of their childhood lives, moments that felt so distant yet so painfully close. Memories played like films before her eyes, her father teaching her how to ride a bike, their family vacations filled with laughter, the warmth of their home before everything spiraled into darkness. "Focus!" her father shouted, breaking the spell of nostalgia. The figure laughed again, a sound that echoed from the twisted recesses of her psyche, winding like a serpent through her thoughts. Each syllable dripped with malice, amplifying the panic swelling within her. "Do you really believe that you can rewrite your endings?" it crooned, inching closer, its presence warping the air with an icy chill. Samantha clenched her fists, determination flooding her veins. "We're not trapped. You don't own us." Her voice rang out, a fragile yet fierce proclamation that startled even her. As if her words had struck a chord, the atmosphere shifted momentarily, the laughter dampening, the shadows retreating just enough to provide a sliver of hope. "Clever girl," the figure hissed, its grin widening to an unsettling degree. "But your heart still quakes with fear." "That's what I want, the fear. The despair. The helplessness." It lunged forward, hands outstretched, claw-like fingers glinting like daggers. Samantha stumbled back, her father instinctively blocking her with his body. "Don't let it in," he shouted, voice strained but commanding. "Remember the light from the mirror. It holds the key." In that instant, she remembered the soft glow, the warmth that had surged through her as she had touched its surface. "Dad! The mirror!" she cried, pointing once more toward the cracked glass that still shimmered with promise. "Together," he urged, locking eyes with her. The moment held a gravity that anchored them side by side. They stepped toward the mirror, their resolve strengthening with every heartbeat. The figure howled, fury radiating as it realized their intent. "You think you can escape? Foolish children." The shadows writhed violently around them, reaching, grasping, threatening to pull them into the void where light dared not tread, but Samantha's heart raced, fueled now by defiance. "We won't let you take us," she shouted, as if each word could weave a barrier against the encroaching darkness. She reached out for the mirror once more, her fingers tracing the shimmering outline. What happened next unfolded in slow motion. The room warped and twisted, the air vibrating with an energy that felt almost tangible. Light cascaded from the mirror, engulfing them in a cocoon of warmth that cut through the chilling shadows. The laughter faltered, the figure's features contorting into a snarl of rage. "No. This isn't the end," it screeched, an entity on the brink of losing its grip. The very foundations of the mansion trembled as if recognizing the shift in power. Samantha's mind raced, connecting the dots behind the mirror's power. "We're not your puppets. We will break the cycle." Each word poured out with conviction as the light enveloped them, illuminating the dark corners of the room, revealing things hidden in the shadows. But even as they called upon the mirror's magic, doubt flickered in the back of Samantha's mind. What if they were wrong? What if there was no escape at all? As the figure writhed and distorted, its form threatening to breach the barrier of light, Samantha caught a glimpse of something unusual, a shadow amongst the shadows, fading in and out of her focus. Someone, or something. Wait, was that Dad? "Look!" she gasped. But even as she spoke, the glass began to quiver, lines of fracture forming once more, threatening to rend their hopes as swiftly as their safety. "Hold on. We're almost there," he shouted, pushing against the tide of darkness that pulled at their heels. And as the mirror began to pulse with a blinding radiance, darkness roiling and crashing into itself like ocean waves, Samantha felt their fate teetering on the edge of despair and revelation. Could they truly break the cycle, or were they about to fall into an even darker abyss? Before they could grasp the answer, the figure lunged one last time with a screech that shattered the air, and everything exploded into chaos again. Light splintered into countless fragments, scattering everywhere as the world fell apart around them. Samantha gasped, the air thickening, each breath a struggle against the dark matter swirling near. The warmth from the mirror pulsed like a heartbeat, fighting against the oppressive force that threatened to tear them apart. It felt as if eternity stood still, caught in a moment of sheer terror. "Keep your eyes on the light." Her father barked, his voice raw and commanding. He gripped her wrist, pulling her closer. Panic flashed in his eyes, mirrored by the chaos around them. What if this wasn't just another battle? What if this was the end? The figure writhed, shadows flickering in its wake. "You cannot escape your past." It shrieked, voice distorting like a broken record, each word a dagger aimed at their resolve. Samantha's heart thundered in her chest, fear wrapping around her like a vice. Suddenly, the mirror burst forth with a blinding flash, momentarily illuminating the room as the figure convulsed with rage. "No. Not again." It howled, the distortion of its voice cracking as real panic seeped in. Samantha squinted against the glare, a spark of recognition igniting within her. A memory surfaced, her mother's smile, the safety of her embrace, warmth that flooded her heart even now at her darkest hour. "We're not alone," she shouted as understanding dawned on her. "We have each other. We can't let it tear us apart. Together." Her father echoed, their voices entwining in the chaos, harmonizing into something powerful. The mirror shimmered in response, the light increasing until it seemed the whole room was forging into a new reality. The shadows recoiled, desperation evident in the wild, shuddering breaths of the figure. Samantha felt strength surge within her, chasing away the tendrils of fear that had taken root. "We will rewrite our story," she shouted with fierceness, every ounce of her will merging with her father's. But just then, the room quaked violently, as if the very walls were alive. The mirror flickered like a candle in the wind. "You're weak. You'll never escape. You'll always return to me." The figure's laughter rose, a sinister symphony that filled the air with dread. Samantha jerked, her vision blurring as the surrounding darkness pressed against her like a crushing weight. "Dad!" she cried, a lump in her throat. "We have to push forward. We can't let it drag us back." Then, in a heartbeat, everything shifted. The shadows lunged, the figure expanding, its claw-like fingers reaching hungrily for them. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm, Samantha's thoughts focused on the mirror, bright and glowing, shining like a beacon. She lunged for it, reaching out for the light as the darkness clawed at her heels. "We can do this!" she shouted, the warmth of the glow wrapping around her, giving her strength. Hand in hand with her father, they dove into the light, feeling it wash over them like a wave of pure vitality. The laughter turned to shrieks, echoing behind them as they surged forward, and then the screeching voice faded, replaced by silence and unsettling absence that left a hollow ache in her chest. Dizzy, Samantha stumbled into a blank space, surrounded by a haze of fog. Where were they? The mirror, gone. Panic threatened to claw its way back into her heart. "Dad?" she whispered into the dense mist cloaking them. No answer. Just the haunting echo of emptiness. Then, a figure emerged from the fog, familiar yet distorted. Her breath caught in her throat. "Dad?" she called again, a desperate plea laced with uncertainty. But the figure didn't move closer. Instead, it stood there, eyes penetrating, filled with something she couldn't quite understand. Was this a friend or a foe? Before she could take a step, the shadows returned, swirling around her, the figure now trapped within its dark embrace. A howl of rage erupted from the depths of darkness, filling the air with an unshakable fear. "Will you help me break free?" A voice whispered from the swirling shadows, both familiar and foreign, piercing through the haze of uncertainty. Samantha's heart raced once more. "What do you want from me?" The figure in the fog smiled, a haunting resemblance, and an urgency gnawed distantly at her consciousness. Suddenly, she felt the cycle closing in around her again. Was she truly beyond the depths of despair, or had she only awakened something much worse within herself? A chill pricked her skin as the shadows loomed closer. Would she find the strength to face her worst fears, again? The shadows danced, twisting like serpents hungry for a meal, closing in on her. Each movement felt like icy fingers wrapping around her throat, squeezing tighter. Samantha tried to step back, but the mist clung to her shoes, rooting her to the spot. "Help me." The figure pleaded again, its voice softer now, almost sweet like honey. Samantha's mind raced. Could this be her mother? The resemblance nagged at the edge of her cognitive grip, something deep inside sparking both recognition and dread. "Why should I trust you?" "Because, my dear," the figure replied, the shadows hesitating as if the words held power. "We share the same blood." Her breath hitched. "But I don't remember you. You left us." "I had to. It wasn't safe. But I'm here now," the figure promised, and the grudging honesty in that tone sparked a flicker of hope. "You can be free of it all. Just take my hand." Samantha looked at the shadowy mass surrounding the figure. Could she really trust this darkened visage of what once was her mother? It could be a trap, a cruel play of the darkness that had stalked her life. "I can't give in to fear," she whispered, gripping the amulet that hung around her neck, a last reminder of her father's love. "I've fought too hard." The shadows recoiled slightly as if her words had burned them. Samantha remembered the warmth of the mirror's glow, how it had felt like safety within a storm. "Leave her alone." A voice boomed suddenly, cutting through the thick atmosphere like a sword, strong and steady. Startled, Samantha turned, her heart racing. Her father emerged from the swirling fog, striding forward, rooted in determination. "You have no power here." His presence ignited something within her, lighting a fire where dread had been stifling. "Dad!" she cried, relief flooding her. She ran towards him, her heart bursting with gratitude. Together, they stood against the encroaching shadows, united in a bond stronger than anything darkness could conjure. The figure's expression shifted, caught between fury and anguish. "You can't stop it. It will consume you both. Not if we face it together." Her father shouted, his voice a thunderclap against the encroaching dread. He stepped forward, a shield against despair. As Samantha clutched his arm, the shadows hissed like angry spirits. "You think family can save you?" they hissed, a mockery dripping with malice. "You're wrong. You're all just parts of the same cruel game. I'm done playing your games." Samantha screamed into the encroaching darkness. "I'll break this cycle, once and for all." With a surge of adrenaline, she stepped forward, feeling the warmth from the amulet pulse beside her heart. "It's time to reclaim my story." Suddenly, the shadows lunged, a monstrous wave crashing. Samantha felt a rush of adrenaline as she focused on the amulet, its light growing blindingly bright. "Together!" she shouted, urging her father to stand firm beside her, their voices harmonized in a sonorous echoing, a living force that swirled around them, merging with the light. "Together!" they thundered, and in that moment, the shadows faltered, retreating like mist before the sun. But in the sudden silence, as the shadows dissipated, a chilling laugh erupted from the gloom, sending shivers down her spine. "You will pay for this." Samantha froze. What had they truly unleashed? Now, a new darkness loomed, one that promised not only fear but vengeance. There, deeper in the void, a greater evil stirred, awakening from a long slumber. Could they withstand the horrors yet to come, or had they simply drawn the dark deeper into their lives? They had escaped one nightmare, but what awaited them in the shadows ahead was far more sinister. Would they have the strength to face it, or would the darkness consume them whole? As the echoes of laughter echoed through the darkened space, Samantha felt a desperate rush of energy blend with her own fears. "Stay close, Dad," she murmured, clenching her father's hand tightly, grounding herself in his presence. She could feel the pulsing energy of the amulet at her neck, warming her heart as if it understood the depth of the struggle before them. "Together," her father whispered, determination lining his voice. The shadows whirled like a storm, menacing and wild, tension crackling in the air as they faced the malevolent figure, now more powerful than ever. The reflection of the mirror lingered in Samantha's mind, reminding her of the light that once shielded them, whispering of strength within. "We are bound by blood, and we refuse to be dictated by your darkness." Samantha shouted, fueling every ounce of will into her words. The figure twisted as if lashed by an unseen force, its form flickering and distorting in reaction to the resolution building between them. "Foolish children," it hissed, venom drenching its voice. "You think bonds can break me? I thrive on your torment." The shadows lunged, attempting to envelop them once more, but Samantha felt an unexpected surge of power coursing through the amulet. "Feel the light," she shouted, raising the amulet high above her head. An intense glow radiated outward, illuminating the shadowy hall, scattering darkness like autumn leaves before a wind. The shadows recoiled, shrieks echoing, lost in the brilliance that now filled the void. "Stand with me," her father called, stepping beside her. Together, they formed a united front against the advancing darkness, their hearts synchronizing with the brilliance illuminating their surroundings. The shadows hesitated, moments stretched into eternity as the figure faltered, revealing flickers of fear. "No. You cannot banish me," it screeched, collapsing into itself. The figure shifted, revealing flashes of eyes, faces, and whispers of fear that subsisted in the darkness now recoiling from the light. "Yes, we can." Samantha and her father shouted in unison, the mantra pounding in their chests, amplifying with every heartbeat. They charged forward, focused on the illuminated path ahead. "This ends now." In a moment pregnant with finality, they thrust the amulet forward, unleashing a wave of pure light, a beacon radiating warmth and love. The shadows twisted violently, the room erupting in a cacophony of screams and fading laughter. Suddenly, a blinding flash enveloped them, leaving only the light. The shadows dispersed like smoke caught in the wind, retreating to the dark corners where they belonged. The laughter dulled until it faded completely. Breathless, Samantha collapsed to her knees, the fight draining from her as relief washed over her in waves. Did we really do it?" she breathed, looking up at her father, who knelt beside her, equally dazed yet smiling, tears glistening in his eyes. "Together," he whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. "We faced the darkness together, Sammy." As they embraced, a light broke through the walls of the mansion, illuminating the shadows that still lingered, shimmering with the promise of a new dawn. The air cleared, leaving behind a warmth that felt like home. "Your fears don't dictate you anymore. We write our fate now." "It's our story," her father said, pulling back to look her in the eyes. Samantha nodded, the weight of her recent trials lifting. They would no longer be caged by the past, but instead, face whatever the world had to offer together. Hand in hand, they turned toward the remaining shadows and took a step forward. The mansion creaked and groaned, but now it felt less like a predator and more like a relic stripped of its power. Together, they would forge their path out of the echoes of fear into the glorious light of hope. As they stepped into the brightness, climbing toward the exit, a sense of finality settled comfortably in their bones. The shadows melted away, revealing a sprawling garden, blooming with vibrant colors. A deep sigh burst from their lips as they breathed in the fresh air for the first time. "We're free," Samantha whispered, exhilaration flooding her heart. "Yes, my brave girl. We're finally free," her father replied, tears of relief in his eyes, a soft smile breaking across his face. Together, they stepped out, leaving the mansion behind, a relic of fear transformed into a story of resilience and love. If you felt the intensity of this story, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share it with your friends, they deserve to experience this thrilling conclusion too. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our community growing. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories, and what you think of Samantha and her dad's journey. Your engagement is what makes this community truly special.